This morning on Inside Kansas Politics, the Black Mass lawsuit now dismissed. Why a judge is dropping a case against a satanic group holding a black mass at the State House.
Plus, Kansans decide. Now you can vote on the future of the state Supreme Court. To know about the new question on next year's ballot. And
you show up and a large crowd who's frankly is very rude, constantly interrupting me.
And U.S. Senator Roger Marshall speaking publicly after walking out of a heated town hall. What he has to say about that, Doge cuts, and more. You're taking a look inside Kansas politics. Welcome in. I'm Rebecca Chung.
And I'm Rob Hughes. Glad you're here. Our top stories soon, but first, it has been a busy week at the State House. Lawmakers are getting closer to the last day of session, and that means a lot of big ticket items are coming up. We're
talking property taxes, the budget, and another thing on their radar, a highly anticipated black mass. Right now, Catholics and lawmakers cracking down. The Archdiocese filing a lawsuit against the Satanic Grotto over the ceremony.
And it was filed by the Archdiocese of Kansas City. Catholics were concerned that the Satanic Grotto had stolen consecrated host and wine for their upcoming ceremony. Those items are usually used during a traditional Christian ceremony to commemorate the Last Supper. But under oath, the Satanic group testified that they did not steal from the church, putting those concerns to rest. And the Black Mass is set for March 28th, with some still concerned about what could happen that day. I spoke with both Republican and Democratic leadership at the State House about the upcoming ceremony. Here's what they have to say.
And then they can't be breaking any laws. That's become also another piece of that if they're going to come in and break a law, then they're not going to be allowed to do that. Will they do that? I'm not sure. They have a right, a First Amendment right, to come and to take part in rallies and such on state grounds. That's what we do here. I mean, all kinds of people come in, but to desecrate somebody else's religion just because that's a freedom of speech, I'm not sure that that's correct. Actually, I think that's not correct.
And at the same time, I think we have to be very cautious when it comes to First Amendment protections. Any group, any time should be able to demonstrate on the Capitol grounds and have their elected officials hear them. But I can disagree with everything that they say and believe while still letting the First Amendment have its day. We need folks that want to demonstrate. If you ban one group, that opens the door to ban everyone.
That's a good point, too, that he made. If you ban one group, it opens the door to ban everyone. And it's kind of that separation between church and state, right? The group of lawmakers not favoring one religion over another. That's a fine line that you walk, especially with something like this, where free speech may be involved. Yeah,
well, the slippery slope fallacy. And Rebecca, you've done a fantastic job covering this. My question for you really is the intent behind the Satanic Grotto's Black Mass. What do they want to achieve? Do they want new policy, a new law? Is it a protest against an existing law?
Well, it seems more of a protest to express their frustration with what they're seeing at the State House. And after talking with the leader of the Satanic Grotto, Michael Stewart, he was telling me a little bit about how he has some frustrations toward the religious aspect that's been imposed in some legislation that he's seen come up at the State House, particularly when it comes to things like abortion is one that we talked about. And that was something where you had a lot of Catholics arguing in favor of passing an amendment that would change the way our Constitution is written to, possibly put more limits on abortion practices. And he sees that as a way that, religion may be forced upon other people, whereas, with his, there are other beliefs, he wants to make sure that people know there are other beliefs that Kansans have, other religions that are in the state, and they want to make that known. So that really is the intent there.
It'll be interesting to see what happens Friday, March 28th.
Yep. Property taxes, another big topic at the State House this week. Nothing set in stone, but right now lawmakers are considering a property tax levy limit. One bill would give voters the chance to approve or reject property tax increases above a set allowable limit. So, for example, in the case that the property tax levy increase is more than the annual inflation rate. I spoke with both sides about what they're hoping to see in a final plan.
I actually like the piece where we partner with the local communities, the local cities and the counties in helping them control their budget. Because the budget is actually what drives taxes. Property taxes are driven by a budget. And so if you can control your budget, you'll keep property taxes lower. If they don't keep property taxes lower, there's a stick in there that says that the people of those communities have the right to do a protest petition to force the local units of government to stay within their budget. So I guess you could call it a carrot and a stick in a way. The carrot is if they stay within this budget, then they get a carrot, they get some money. If they don't, then the people of their community have the right to say, no, you are going to stay within this bound.
We got to make sure that whatever property tax bill we pass is actually sustainable. The Senate's plan artificially caps property valuations, which just prices first-time home buyers or folks that are looking to downsize out of the market. You can have a 3% cap, but the moment you put that house on the market, it's going to skyrocket. So we oppose that, and the House has a very strong position, I think, in favor of what we're looking for. So I think the Astra Fund is one of the most important things. It actually will incentivize local units of government to lower their property taxes. I also really liked our 6-year rolling average. The problem isn't property taxes, it's actually the increase in valuations from year to year. So the House plan would actually spread those increases over 6 years. So at the end of the day, whatever we're going to pass needs to be meaningful.
Now it's going to be interesting to see what sort of plan they come up with, because I know Democrats were very strong on the fact that this needs to be a sustainable plan over time. The governor coming out with that caveat early on during session saying that, okay, well, if we're going to do a property tax cut or make some sort of property tax reform, it has to be sustainable and it has to be something that, you know, will be sustainable over time in the budget. However, we're not even seeing the April consensus revenue estimates just yet. So it's going to be difficult to see, you know, how things would stack up over time if they did come out with a plan.
And when you think about the constituents, who this impacts, I've covered similar types of stories before in other states, and what will happen is you might have somebody on a fixed income and property taxes rise astronomically, and suddenly they're concerned about being taxed out of their home. And so this is one way that hopefully combat that, and it would allow people to have a say in that process.
Definitely going to have to keep an eye on that. Turning now to Supreme Court justice selection. Starting in 2026, you will decide the future of the state Supreme Court.
Yeah, there is a new question on the ballot. Right now, a board of attorneys narrows down a pool of picks for the governor to choose from. But next year in August, you can decide whether you want to vote on justices directly moving forward. Supporters say it gives a voice to the people, but critics say it could make Supreme Court elections political.
Here's what the House Speaker and House Minority Leader are saying after the governor called changing the current system a mistake.
People say that, but right now, who selects them? And they are a very, I wouldn't call them partisan, I would call them very special interest group that selects justices. So if you think that politics is not a part of that selection process now, you would be wrong. It is very much a part of the process. Actually, this brings it back to the people.
Regardless of political party, the governor is elected as our, executive of the state, and so looking at that process, she's able to appoint those folks. And in Kansas, all of our justices have to stand for retention elections. So if there's a justice that wasn't doing something wrong or isn't being fair, the Kansas voters have the ability to not retain justices and get them off the bench.
In other words, Rebecca, if this passed, is the most qualified person going to get that seat, or is it going to be political, meaning the person who can campaign the best, who's most popular amongst the voters? How would that shake out? Well,
as you heard the speaker say, he did raise a good point. Are these positions not already political? You have the governor appointing people that are already chosen by board of attorneys, who chooses the board of attorneys, right, or some questions that he raised, and then, then put into that spot for years to come. However, why not open it up, give a voice to the people? What's the issue with that? Well, some people saying, okay, well, this would open up these races to being more political, to having maybe big money corruption in these races, special interests coming in. But then, at the same time, we do have, on the other point that Leader Woodard was saying, he was saying that, we have retention elections here in Kansas. What's wrong with the current system? So I think both sides have some interesting arguments that you could take a look at. I think, this will be an opportunity for Kansans to decide what they want when it comes to the system.
Indeed, and Senator Ty Masterson, when he had a press conference on this, he put it very succinctly. He said, do we let lawyers continue being lawyers, or do we, like you said, do we let the people decide? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this one as well.
Definitely. Well, we have more coming up after the break, including this.
Do we really want to spend the taxpayers' money on sending people to summer camps?
Lawmakers are going over the budget, which means cuts for some programs.
Which ones are on the chopping block? We'll be right back. You are watching Inside Kansas Politics.
The people that I represent have had serious injuries or deaths in the family.
Being able to be there for someone and have that feeling of providing for them.
Being able to help them through that process and relieve some of the stress that comes from that kind of uncertainty.
Finding the truth for my clients and solving their problems. I became a lawyer to make a difference in people's lives, and getting my clients there and getting them compensation and letting them know that there's somebody there for them. It's really rewarding.
The story of Grace Med has always been told through its people, both those who serve and those who it is our honor to serve. We meet at the intersection of compassion and vulnerability, bringing health where there was illness and hope where there was despair. Our patients come to us bearing the weight of living in the margins, and we share the love of Jesus Christ with them by providing compassionate quality health care for all their physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. Because health restored is always hope renewed. Find hope today by scheduling an appointment with Grace Med.
Huge savings all month long at Vanderbilt's. Save $55 on the warm Ariat soft shell jacket, $69.99. Comfortable and durable Ariat rebar work utility pants, $44.99. Waterproof Double H Phantom Rider safety toe boots, $134.99. Save $65 on these Durango Rebel boots. Your choice, $99.99.
Your work boots center, Vanderbilt.
This tax season, why not save more? At Faith Furniture, we're axing the tax. That's right, get savings equal to your sales tax. Why pay more when you can pay less? Save the tax and enjoy the savings on the furniture you love. From cozy couches to a new mattress set. Now's the time to bring home more for less. Don't wait, the clock is ticking. Come into Faith Furniture in Manhattan today and axe the tax. Hurry, these savings won't last forever.
Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. Turning now to a look at what's on the chopping block for Kansas lawmakers.
That includes cuts to the Kansas Arts Commission. Lawmakers are working on a final plan to bring to the floor, but right now the Senate recommending getting rid of $1 million. And some people are frustrated over the cuts. Take a listen.
Any kind of funding decrease from the Kansas Arts Commission is definitely going to have an impact on the kinds of programmings that we can serve to the community, the kinds of projects that artists put out into the community. And overall, like, without additional funding that helps support those, then we may be looking at having to decrease programming, having to pull some of the arts activities that we have planned for the future. And you know, we've done a lot of stuff with economic development through the arts for our community, and that's everything from murals to festivals that we put on. And so it would be really impactful and detrimental to see that happen.
Yeah, she makes a good point. You know, what happens to the arts community? What happens to these festivals and these things that they've been putting on if they don't have state funding?
It's very unfortunate, Rebecca. I mean, this has been happening for a long, long time. I remember the film Mr. Holland's Opus, to where the arts program gets cut and the arts teacher had been there for a very long time. So unfortunately, it seems like whenever you have to make cuts, whenever there's fiscal challenges, it seems like the arts is unfortunately
one of the first
always,
to go.
Always the first one to go. Yeah, but I'm a big fan of the arts. I'm biased, and as you heard, many people are passionate about it. But unfortunately, if you have limited dollars and you have to cut something, like you said, it always seems to be the arts on the chopping block.
Right. Where do those cuts go? Those are it's the fine line they have to walk. The House didn't recommend any cuts, but here's what the top Republican and Democrat in the House have to say about the changes.
Well, as far as the Arts Commission, I don't really have an opinion on that. What I have an opinion on is the fact that government should be doing what individuals in private businesses can't. That's our job. Our job, you know, it's all the infrastructure that it takes for people to be able to live in society. It's fire, it's police, it's all of those things. Our local counties and cities and state government and federal government who went way past that. And so what we're trying to do is to control those areas to where we can keep from having to raise taxes.
This budget, to quote our ranking member, she talked about the initial House budget being lean and mean, and now she's talking about the Senate's budget being leaner and a lot meaner. And that's what we're seeing. They're attacking different programs in the name of, and look, Kansas does need to take a look, just like Kansas families are doing right now. They're taking a look at their budgets and their pocketbooks and deciding and making difficult decisions. The issue for us is that we are now passing a budget before we have the April consensus revenue estimates. So we're making a budget plan without knowing how much money we have. We don't know the implications of the tax bill that we passed last year just yet, because we did change the income tax rates. And so some Kansas employers are withholding actually more than Kansans need. So we're going to owe a lot on tax day back to Kansans.
So lean and mean, or is the juice worth the squeeze, as I like to say? Now, I think it's important to note that it's certainly not saying the arts are going to go away. They're just going to have to find private funding or other means to fund the arts, but they're certainly going to be around forever, of course, and we certainly cherish the arts, but like we said, unfortunately, when times are tough, there's limited dollars.
There's limited dollars, and they just have to find a way, find out where they can cut from that budget. And both sides may have different opinions on where that should be or where those cuts should go, but in the end they do have to make way for some of the other legislation that they're trying to pass this session. So moving on to some more cuts that we're seeing, let's pull those up. We have the Sunflower Summer Program, the House recommending deleting $2.5 million from that program, the Senate saying let's delete $500,000. Then for public broadcasting, the House says let's cut $200,000. Senate says let's cut $700,000. So here's what Republicans and Democrats are saying about cuts to both programs.
And quite frankly, there's an argument is why did we ever start that? Do we really want to spend the taxpayers' money on sending people to summer camps? Is that government's job? Not really. So I do believe that's something that should not be in our budget.
I think that we saw that come from, post-COVID and getting Kansans out into nature. I know just looking at my email inbox, I'm getting dozens of folks reaching out to tell stories about how they've taken their grandkids or been able to go participate in these programs. PBS, it's the same way. Is that our job? Is it our job to fund PBS? Now, I think there's probably still some funding in there for that. I haven't looked at that. But again, we should do what people and private enterprise can't. No, we absolutely need public broadcasting, and I think that we're continuing to see what they're doing at the federal level. You're seeing that infect into this building, which in my 7 years here, this is the first time I've seen them copy and paste what the federal government is doing in the name of government efficiency.
Well, we do kind of have our own Doge here in Kansas, don't we? Coach.
We do, yeah.
So
let's start with Sunflower Summer Program. Now, if you talk about tourism, if you talk about exploring our beautiful state, seeing everything there is to offer, to get rid of that, what do you think the impacts of that would be?
Well, possibly just maybe not as great of an experience for people who are wanting to send their kids to summer camp, who may not have those resources and need some of those resources to do that. So it may be difficult for them. We look at public broadcasting, and that's something that everyone is able to access. It's not something that you need a streaming platform for or anything like that. So I think it's really important to look at where exactly these cuts are being made. Maybe, they're also considering not cutting as much or considering the budgets of some of these areas. But again, it goes back to walking that fine line and understanding that we also do need to balance the budget and make cuts. So what are the programs where we can cut, that we need to cut from in order to, be able to have a balanced budget for years to come? And sometimes it's not what everyone wants. Not everyone gets what they want in these.
Yeah, definitely got to find a solution though. Yeah, because like we heard, public broadcasting obviously important, freedom of the press.
Yes.
You want an informed citizenry, of course, and then tourism is important. The Sunflower Summer Program, but like we've been discussing, you do have to make cuts somehow. So how are you going to do that?
Exactly. Well, coming up after the break.
Yeah, I sit down with Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. We talk Doge cuts, a heated town hall, and more.
We'll be right back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
Since 1986, Riley Construction has been your trusted commercial general contractor. From pre-construction planning and budgeting to full-scale construction services, we deliver quality and expertise every step of the way. Riley Construction, experience you can trust.
Topeka, you've spoken, and thanks to you, Devon James wins. For the second year in a row, Devon James was voted Best Law Firm in the Topeka 2024 Official Community's Choice Awards, supporting the community and protecting the rights of accident victims.
Thank you, Topeka,
for making Devon James your choice of law firms.
Topeka's best law firm, proud to fight for the people of Topeka. If you've been injured, Devon James wins. Call 888-8888.
At Knoller, we get a lot of questions about all of our Ford products, but none more than this Bronco Raptor. This Bronco Raptor is equipped with a 3.0 twin turbo, 418 horsepower, 440 pounds of torque. This baby moves. This vehicle is equipped with 4 different drive select modes, including GOAT mode, which gets you over any type of terrain. This Bronco Raptor has 37-inch wheels, which help create this 13.1-inch ground clearance. And the best part about these Broncos are whether you're trudging through the mud in the rain with the tops on or enjoying a nice cruise down the boulevard with the tops off, they have the versatility to suit any of your needs. When you're out boulder crawling, cruising the highway, or sand duning, the Ford Bronco Raptor is fitted with available technology to keep you connected and entertained. So, for everybody looking for a new vehicle, from EVs to Super Duties, come down to Knoller and let us get you taken care of.
Taking care of my mother is a 24-hour-a-day job. I need a break sometimes. Let Home Instead help you take a well-deserved break. Trusted relief when you need it.
I think it's a great, we don't have time for everyone to stand up. I do got 2 more commitments today. Appreciate everybody making the drive out, and God bless America. Thank you.
It's the town hall that made waves across Kansas. U.S. Senator Roger Marshall being booed after walking out from a heated crowd. Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. Marshall now speaking publicly about that day.
Yeah, I sat down with him, and he says that he was not expecting the crowd that showed up, many traveling for hours to be there. He's now doubling down, calling the crowd rude, and here's what he had to say.
You show up and a large crowd who's frankly is very rude, constantly interrupting me, wouldn't let me talk about agriculture. I stood tall. I answered every one of their questions. Typically, I spend 45 minutes at a town hall. I had answered several veteran questions earlier, and there comes a time when their questions are being repeated, and there also comes a time when the local people had had enough. The local people, I could see the temperature rising in the room, and I was concerned that if I stayed there, it could get out of hand. So I think the better part of valor was to let them have the last word. Again, I stood tall, answered every question, and it was time to end that meeting before something bad happened.
All right, and what does Marshall say that he's doing now in the future? I know Speaker Johnson encouraging Republican lawmakers to not have these town halls in person anymore.
Yeah,
right?
and that's what he said, Rebecca, he said he's doing a lot of telephone town halls, if you will. He said they're much easier to control and certainly a lot easier than in person when he had a crowd like that, and that's what he plans on doing in the future. However, I do want to provide some context as far as Oakley, Kansas. The senator mentioned town of roughly 3,000 people. Many livelihoods are based directly or indirectly on agriculture. And the senator mentioned he wanted to deliver a message of agriculture as it pertains to Oakley. And then, as we know, people traveled as far away as Kansas City. He even said eastern Colorado or close to the Colorado border to be there. And the senator mentioned he did answer their questions for about roughly 45 minutes. But as he had said there, he felt that things were getting a little heated. It was uncomfortable, and he didn't feel like it was productive any longer. Questions were being repeated, and that's why he had left. But as far as, he also did mention, Rebecca, that he's done many town halls, but as far as for the foreseeable future, he had told me for the near term they've been doing more of the phone call type of town halls or virtual.
Right, and it's
format.
because of that upset that we're seeing at some
Right.
of these Republican-held town halls from constituents who are concerned about some of the DOGE cuts that are being made.
And we talked also just a lot about the political decorum. I mean, when the president gave his, of course, joint address, we know what happened there. We know what happened even here in Topeka at the state capitol. We have lawmakers filing complaints against each other for their decorum on the state floor. So I'd asked the senator about that, his thoughts on, is this just reflecting the larger political decorum we're seeing in the U.S., and he thinks that could certainly play into that as well.
A bit more discord now.
Exactly.
Okay. Moving on to DOGE and federal workforce cuts. On our previous show, we mentioned how nearly 1/3 of the federal workforce are veterans.
Yeah, and I asked Senator Marshall what he's doing to help those impacted. Here is his response.
I'm a veteran. My brother, my dad served in the military. My son is serving right now. Every generation going back to the Civil War, someone from my family has served. Veterans are a huge priority for me, and doing everything we can to help them. I was so proud of what we did with President Trump in office, that we made it easier for our veterans to get care in their hometowns. The veterans approvals soared to 88% under President Trump. Now, unfortunately, under Joe Biden, those veteran ratings have dipped down to 55%. The average wait time has went from 22 to 29 days. So I'm absolutely committed to help solving those problems. And again, my own family is currently using veteran services, and my son is serving, and I want to do everything we can to help the veterans.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about how some of those cuts are also affecting places here in Kansas.
Exactly, and this was more of a twofold answer, Rebecca, because I had asked him initially about DOGE, and we've reported before about how just looking at the federal workforce holistically, you have roughly 1/3 are veterans, because veterans do receive points, if you will, as they've earned, meaning when they're applying for federal service. If you're a veteran, you get points. If you are on the disability rating, you get points. So I'd asked him, these cuts impact, of course, veterans, as we've reported, and the senator had talked about that. And then also there he was talking about, say, the VA, for example, talking about government efficiency, DOGE, and he was saying, for example, if you have 3 people doing one job and you get rid of 2, essentially his logic is that you still have the same quality of service for veterans with less people. Yeah, but essentially what he was saying is that he empathizes with the cuts. He's doing all he can to help the veterans, and as he said, it's very personal for him being a veteran. His son is overseas as we speak, and so it's something that he's doing all he can to fight and to help. Yeah. Now I want to move on to another topic we talked about with Senator Marshall, which is the Farm Bill. Of course, it's a huge part of our economy here in Kansas. Many farmers are concerned about fertilizer and diesel costs that have been increasing the last few years. Senator Marshall approached it from both a financial as well as an economic angle as well, saying that he wants to make sure that farmers have financing available so they can run and grow their farms and their operations. But he also touched on ensuring farmers can access crop insurance as well, something they need as well. Here's more on the senator's response to this topic.
The best thing we could do to help our farmers would be to drop those interest rates. How do we do that? I think we set American energy free. Energy is an inflation multiplier, but also balancing the budget. Working towards a balanced budget is going to decrease the amount of money the federal government is borrowing, and that'll decrease inflation and therefore interest rates as well. The farmers did well under President Trump before. I understand the stress out there. Specifically, let's talk about tariffs just for a minute. Under President Trump 45, he did the same thing. He used these tariffs to leverage other countries into making deals like the USMCA trade agreement, which has been great for American agriculture. He used it to leverage trade deals with Japan and South Korea. So the bright part of the Kansas ag economy is the beef industry right now, as well as dairy, and it's because of those agreements. So he will use these tariffs as a tool, but at the end of the day, long term, I'm asking my farmers to hang in there with the president. And I think first and foremost, I'm grateful for these farmers that they're patriots, that they trust the president, and they want Canada and Mexico to secure the borders so the fentanyl stops coming in here. And we want China to stop making those precursors of fentanyl that end up in this country as well.
Covered a lot of ground on this one as well. Rebecca, the senator, is mentioning economics, policy, and ensuring farmers can have access to capital and financing. And essentially what he was saying there is that he wants to make sure farmers, they can get crop insurance, they can get financing to run their operations. And he was also talking about international policy, trade policy. You heard him mention tariffs in there as well, inflation. All that impacts agriculture, which obviously, as we mentioned, is huge in Kansas. And the senator essentially was saying he's doing everything he can to fight for farmers to make sure they can run their operations and they can focus on their livelihoods.
All right. Well, we'll be right back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
What's for dinner? Shop Dillon's for appetizing ingredients and big savings, like $600 in digital coupons and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump. Dillon's, fresh for everyone.
To everyone who believes in tradition, come enjoy a few of ours from Wisconsin.
People in Wisconsin love a good fish fry.
Really love. And we love sharing it with guests everywhere.
At Culver's, we still batter our North Atlantic cod by hand to order.
And we cook it to a crispy, golden perfection just for you.
For you.
For you. So it's crispy outside, flaky inside. Let us take care of you.
With some homegrown traditions we were raised on.
From Wisconsin with love.
Welcome to Delicious.
Our warehouse is a mess. We've grown so big, so fast, we got to get it cleaned up. And the clock is ticking. We've got siding too short to be seamless, but too long to be recycled. If we can use our shorter pieces of siding on the back of your home to make just a few seams, we'll make the front and 2 sides seamless. It's almost like getting the back done free. And if you buy 3, you'll get 1 free. New polymer windows. This won't last long, so click.
The story of Grace Med has always been told through its people, both those who serve and those who it is our honor to serve. We meet at the intersection of compassion and vulnerability, bringing health where there was illness and hope where there was despair. Our patients come to us bearing the weight of living in the margins, and we share the love of Jesus Christ with them by providing compassionate quality health care for all their physical, emotional, and spiritual needs. Because health restored is always hope renewed. Find hope today by scheduling an appointment with Grace Med.
Dillon's Boost makes saving easy. With 2 times fuel points, unlimited free delivery, and your choice of Disney Plus, Hulu, or ESPN Plus on us. Discover all the easy ways to save when you enroll in Boost today. Dillon's, fresh for everyone.
And that was your look inside Kansas politics. We'll see you next Sunday, same time, same place.
Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.